We are live. Sorry, folks. We're actually breaking records. We now have 5, count them, on our live stream broadcast. And so far, the home network has not crashed. Thank you, Altice, for doing this. So welcome. We've got a really, really interesting show here, and with 3 fascinating guests. Laura, how are you? Good?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us today, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. So, title of the show is "Surviving and Thriving as a Startup in Very Tough Times." So, with that, I wonder if we should just go down the row and just make some quick intros before we dive into the discussion. Let's start with you, Frank. Who are you, and what do you do?
I'm a consultant. I have 44 years in the insurance technology space. Built a company and a system that's actually still in use after 35 years. And I've spent the last 5 years concentrating on the insurtech space, predominantly working with startups.
Anurag.
Hi, everyone. This is Anurag. Thanks for inviting Paul and Laura. So I've been an entrepreneur since 2001. I currently run Aureus Analytics since the last 6+ years, focused on the insurance world and AI, bringing AI to the insurance world.
Excellent. Matt.
Thanks, everyone. Paul, Laura, thanks for having us. And I'm the co-founder of Insurance Agent App, the premier service platform for independent agents that connects them with their policyholders and their insurance companies.
Yeah, well, thanks. So, first of all, very wide range of experience. These are strange times indeed. Frank, obviously you've been through the last, 2007, 2008. I know you've been advising startups for a long period of time.
Yep.
What's the world like? I mean, I know what it's like to get groceries. I mean, what does it feel like to be a startup that you're working with right now?
Well, I actually had a phone call yesterday with a mutual friend of ours, the first to join the Nassau Re Imagine accelerator.
Yeah.
And Dr. Renu Joseph is back in Basel, safe with her husband, but she's having to hunker down. She's in the process of a capital raise, and the money is kind of frozen. And so what she's doing is what a lot of startups, I'm sure, are doing, which is minimizing the expenses so they can weather this period of time. Not everyone is suffering. There's often benefits in times like these, but she and a lot of others are struggling. And hopefully her ability to stay in touch through technology is going to keep her connected to the folks that are.
Oh, sorry about that, folks. We'll get Frank back here shortly.
Thank you.
You're back. I'm sorry. Listen, we're going to get this. I'm trying to get him give me as big a pipe as I can get here from the house. I'm telling him it's important. So maybe Frank, you can call my cable and help me get ahead of it.
Yeah, mine too. At any rate, there are folks here on the call who are actual startup entrepreneurs, and I don't want to take a lot of time. Anurag and Matt both have their own experiences in this time, and I think it would be best to hear from them.
Yeah, Anurag, let's start with you. Can you tell people a bit about your company if they don't already know it, and kind of your interesting journey from India to Hartford. Before you jump in there, just like to tell you, please, if you're on the show, just say hi so we know who you are, because we'd love to include you in the conversation. So, Anurag, tell us about what's the state of the state like with your for your company today, and tell us what's going on in Hartford right now.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So these are obviously very, very unique times. We've seen different situations. As I said, my first startup was in 2001, right after the Y2K and the other things around it. So, we've seen 2008 as well, but this is something very different. Um, we are seeing an experience. So half of or I would say most of our team is back in India, and we've built a business in Hartford now. So we are seeing experiences happening at both parts of the world. Everybody's going through similar challenges. Our entire country in India got locked down for 21 days starting tonight. We are seeing similar things here. So it's very, very unique circumstances. Not something we've seen before. But at the same time, if past is any precedent, will come out. There's always a silver lining. In each of those cases in the past, we've come out with a new normal, and that stayed on. So, at Aureus, we are seeing the same. We are communicating as much as we can with our employees, with our customers, with our prospects, and trying to stay as close to the situation as possible.
Now, Anurag, I think you're in a fairly strong position. I mean, you have existing contracts with carriers, and you actually completed a capital raise, correct? Earlier this year, is that right?
Yeah, last year.
Last year, right. So, Matt, tell us about your company and sort of tell us, how has this impacted your business?
Sure. I think we were impacted the way every other company was, at least in the U.S. and in the world, which was you take a moment to assess how are we going to approach our clients and prospects at this point in time? Do you really want to bother somebody at a time that they're trying to figure stuff out at the same time? So everything Anurag said in terms of, thinking through this situation versus 10 years ago versus .com bust, we all have our experiences that lend themselves to how are you going to handle this? But what we found is, and I've gone back and looked at a lot of our own website analytics, both year to year, month to month on the same weeks, and found that our traffic is up. And part of the reason is because of what we do, which is we help insurance agents stay connected to their clients. And I have kidded with many of those principals that I've spoken with in the last couple of weeks and joked about the fact that if your clients didn't want to talk with you before because they enjoy tapping now with their service providers, they certainly are not going to want to meet with you now in person, right? So they get it, and they all recognize that, it would be a really good time to make sure that we are connected with our clients via the Insurance Agent app. And we have found that a lot of clients that were waiting for a release, and ironically, we put out a major release last Thursday. So talk about building up all the momentum for that, and all of a sudden the world has changed right underneath you. We found that people were still very hungry for that release. So it isn't business as usual by any means, but with the proper positioning, and we have positioned it this way, that now is the right time to be communicating with your clients in a meaningful way.
Yeah. Hey, and Michael Davis just joined us. So, hey, Michael, we want to hear from you as well. You tap something in. We'll read Laura or I'll read your comment or question. Yeah, Matt, I actually, Anurag, you said there's a positive line in everything. I do agree there is here, because the businesses that have gotten impacted have been very. This is not an even impact at all. Like I kind of, and especially in the insurance industry. So, if you're working face to face with agents and you're only working with paper and I'm only showing up in Frank's house, this is crushing my business. And we're hearing this from some of our distributors on the insurance side, and we're working rapidly to help them make this switch. Now, flip side is, wow, work for Amazon. I mean, you can't even get a delivery, right? I see everything's lined up. Zoom, why didn't I buy stock in Zoom, right? Matt, tell us what you're doing. Like, why, if I'm an agent, that was doing things the old way, I don't want your app. Why would I have wanted it 2 months ago? And what's the difference today?
Well, look, in the last 10 years, all of us have engaged with service providers in a different way. The mobile device makes us more productive, whether it's for the bank, travel. All of us are tapping our way to productivity as opposed to calling our way necessarily or visiting our way to productivity. And true to form, the insurance industry is late to that party. Again, thinking that, my clients will never use an app. Well, guess what? They really will, particularly, and I found out my own personal lines company is going to dip their toe in that water again after failing miserably. They put out an app a long time ago, and it was a train wreck. They pulled it, and I just learned after I got a letter from the CEO that went out to all policyholders that yes, we will be putting out an app. And it cracked me up because I guess they finally do realize that their clients will engage with them via an application. The difference is that with our platform is that we keep the independent agent at the center point of communication. If you think of the independent channel as 3 points of a triangle with companies, agencies, and policyholders, all communication there is two-way. There's nothing that connects all three, so that they literally can communicate with one another. And right now, we're trying to connect all three of those points. Companies are the last point of that. But let me go back to the agencies communicating with their clients. They do recognize that it is okay to allow clients to self-service where necessary. They can access an ID card. They don't need to call in for it for the 5th time and have it sent to them again. It'll be right there inside the application. So allow people to self-service in a way that relieves your staff of, foolish time that is spent servicing things that an app can handle very, very simply. So those are the things, and these are baby steps for agencies. It's allow people to send you this or text back to you, because they're now, I love it when an agency says, we're going to text people now. Isn't that great? And the first question is, are you using your own personal device? Well, yeah. Now they're getting off that and they're using it through the management system. And I'll always ask, well, that's great. If they received a text from you 6 months ago, how are they going to know what number to text into? Because obviously they're not going to find that text string 6 months later. So inside the app, people can text back to the agency. These are little things, okay, that, gosh, for other industries, they've been going on for years, right? But for insurance, this is still blue water. And now, all of a sudden, more than ever, that if they didn't talk with you before, they're not going to want to meet with you now. You better find another way to engage with them. And mobile is just a natural fit for that.
Yeah. Laura, we have a question, I think.
We do. So this one's pointed to, let's point it to Anurag from Michael Davis. Do you find that it's easier to connect with prospects now that everyone's working from home? So going to that connectivity element of it.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I mean, again, we don't have a lot of weeks of experience, but if the last few weeks are any measure, what we've seen is a few of our meetings got almost overnight got converted to video conferences, which is great, right? So they were more effective, less expensive, and we got the same work done. And there were a few that said, oh, listen, we got to take care of business and we'll probably circle back in a few weeks after things settle down. So it's a bit of both, but we do see that a lot of our potential prospects have started shifting to digital ways to engage, and that's great to see. So yeah, I think the short answer is yes. It is slightly easier to do it. Of course, it's no replacement for personal relationships and meetings eventually, but I think the new normal would be a combination of a lot of work that can be done remote and digital combined with the in-person digital or the relationship-based work that you can do only when you meet people. So it's going to change a few things for sure.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to move to question number 1, okay, which is what tough decisions do startups need to make? And I'll throw this out. Let's just go back. I find when you try to make something new feel accomplishable, sometimes you want to make it feel like you've been there before. So maybe let's turn the clock back to 2007, 2008. I mean, Frank, Anurag, Matt, tell us where you were in 2007, 2008, and what did you do? What were those lessons like? Frank, do you want to
Well,
start with you?
sure. I can tell you that I was working for myself, which I have been for the last 24 years, and mostly working from home. I did have clients who wanted me present on occasion, but for the most part, the change was imperceptible for me. The projects that I was working on, I was able to continue working on. They were mostly long-term contracts, so there wasn't much interruption. There was a pullback in some sectors, but it really didn't affect me. I did see it with other companies that I was consulting with. They did experience some withdrawal.
Right, but it sounds like for you, Frank, the key was existing contracts
Exactly.
with needs that remain constant. Anurag, how about you?
Yeah, the big difference between I would say 2008 and now, and again, we're still not over it to fully compare. But at least one thing I can say is that there's some sort of a, for a lack of a better word, level playing field. What's happening to us is happening to everyone, right? So it's not impacting a specific sector. Of course, things like retail, entertainment will face more impact as compared to others, etc., etc. But we see everybody's going to be troubled with what is going on. So which was slightly different back in 2008, and I think the key, to go back to your question on tough decisions, I think we have to step back and be frugal. I mean, startups are known to be frugal to begin with, um, but sometimes you forget what it means to be frugal as you expand and grow, and you probably need to revisit that at this time. The second thing, which has always worked, and not just in such times but always, but more important in such time, is communication, right? So with employees, with customers, with partners, communicate as much as you can. I think these are the two important decisions, at least from our perspective.
Yeah, Matt.
I think the 2008, we had just started our first venture, which is how we got into mobile development. And I don't know that experience necessarily is relevant to right now. We actually had more cash on hand back then than we do now. And I'll be very straightforward and say, look, the first thing I did last week was say, if everything stopped right now and nothing new transpired, what's your run rate for the rest of the year? How far could you go as a startup if everything literally stopped? Because I don't think any one of us has ever seen things stop the way that they have. I work on a 4-lane road here in Charlotte, North Carolina, like a very early Sunday morning every day now. And it's freaky. It's like I would never experience that. Nobody has. You saw visions of Times Square at 6 p.m. on CNBC last night. Nobody's there. I've never seen that. So that was the first reality for me, which was, if this really did stop, worst case scenario, what do you got? How far can you go? And I'm comfortable that we're in a good spot, because I don't think it's going to go that far. But those are the things you really do have to be scared of. What is the worst case scenario? And that's the first thing I did, in addition to thinking, how do you really want to communicate right now? And give people a moment to digest this as business people, because nobody knows. They haven't been through this before. Anybody who has, I think they're lying.
Yeah. Hey. Well, and welcome, Kurt. We've got Kurt Thonason. Sorry, Kurt, if I killed your last name, but I know you've actually got a startup in the risk segment as well. And if you've got questions, advice, jump on. Yeah, it's I looked at actually one of the VCs, Frank, we had over, actually sent around a pretty good link to a Sequoia presentation from 2007, 2008. If anybody wants it,
Oh yeah,
yeah, we can put the links in here. But I would say the sort of moral to the very long deck is make decisions decisively, act decisively, Matt, and kind of what I heard you just say is what they do, which is says, hey, number one, perform a situational analysis immediately, adapt quickly, use zero-based budgeting, make cuts if you have to. Hopefully you don't. Review salaries, employ heavily commissioned sales structure. Interesting. Anurag, I know you're building your sales group out as well, so I'd be interested to see your perspective. Bolster your balance sheet. Okay, Anurag, check the box on last year. Become cash flow positive as soon as possible, and spend every dollar as if it were the last. What do you think? Good, Anurag, good list from the last time you're going through, or would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, given the typical startup journey, most of the dollars is spent as if it was the last, and sometimes many cases it is. So we've always been frugal, thankfully. So hopefully we won't have to make too many changes, but there will be changes. There will be changes, like in the list you mentioned. I think for sure, right from team to travel to expenses, we'll have to take a step back and figure out what's the most important thing we need to do to weather this time, and then be ready for what's on the other side.
Yeah, got it. Well, let me move on to the second question. What support can ecosystems provide here, Frank? And I'll start with you. You know our Hartford ecosystem well. You know other areas. Yeah. What advice would you have for us?
All the accelerators and incubators in town have released their startups to return home, and have established virtual connections for the various training and education and mentoring that that they would have received in person. One of the big changes that I've noticed is the cancellation of all the conferences that were scheduled for this fall, all the industry conferences. And I know that Anurag and Matt and I were all scheduled to go to the Hawksoft User Group annual conference in Florida in mid-April. And in terms of adjusting, that ecosystem, if I can call it that, offered all the vendors the ability to leave their money in, which was a clever idea, and get webinars in exchange that they would socialize with their entire user base, which represents maybe 6 or 7 times the number of people who would ordinarily attend the conference in person. So
smart.
Yeah, and it represents a shift for them. We all will have our attendance next year comped because.
Oops. Well, lost him for. Frank will be back in just a second. When challenges with. Okay, sorry.
I don't know if you got the end of that.
No, we got now. Yeah. You can finish. We're hanging on our seats here. Yeah. So
we're all I think we're going to be in better shape, all of us, as a result of this, and we will get to go next year and see people in person, assuming that we're not sheltering in place at that time.